you heard about the Queen Conch project? It's being spearheaded by the OECS with funding from the EU. And to make sure you know that, right? Marnin, as we have Alexander Gerben with us, a project economist on that Queen Conch project. They're conducting a seminar, well, not a seminar, but a meeting, a conference here on the Queen Conch project that's it's a collaborative effort between the OECS islands. Mr. Gerben, Marnin.
Morning, Candyman. Thank you so much for having me here to talk about Queen Conch.
It's great to have you. Yeah. And welcome to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Thank you very much.
Is this your first time in Vincent?
Not my first time in Vincent.
No, so that's why you look so relaxed.
Exactly.
I'm sure you're having a good time, aren't you?
I am, certainly.
Indeed, that's wonderful. So, Queen Conch. First of all, most Vincentians don't even know what that is. We can't distinguish one conch from the other. What is conch? Well, we know conch shell.
Well, lambi is the biggest conch. That's why it's called the queen. It's the biggest, it's the pinkest, it's the one with the flared lip. So it's amongst the conchs and whelks or sea snails, they're quite special. They have the greatest yield and they're one of the most commercially important ones globally.
It's a lot of money for that one.
It's a lot of money for that one. I mean, even for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I think it's about 60% approximately of your fisheries exports are coming from Queen Conch. So people, maybe think of fishing not as an industry, but fishing is an industry. It is a significant commercial activity for the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Okay, so St. Vincent and the Grenadines exports Queen Conch, as you rightly said. Other OECS islands export it as well. Why do we therefore need to have this project of collaboration that you are here to put together?
Well, we're in a very special situation because, of course, St. Vincent and the Grenadines shares the Grenadines with Grenada, right? So the Grenadine Bank is one of the major places for the harvesting and collecting of Queen Conch. So St. Vincent and the Grenadines is very important from a biological perspective. But as well, you had the opening of the Argyle International Airport, which was a significant, it was quite good for exporters here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and they really entered the global market for Queen Conch. Now, of course, that's good. There's a lot of new employment. But as well, that poses some challenges because you have increased harvest of Queen Conch. And as we know, the Queen Conch is a snail. You can go out in the ocean, and once you see it, you can pick it up anytime you want to. It's also slow to mature. So there are a lot of risks associated with this commercial activity, but it's still very, very important for St. Vincent and the Grenadines to collaborate with these other countries because of the shared stock, but also because in the case of St. Lucia, they're a major destination market for the conch, but also a major re-exporter of conch to the French Caribbean. So you're all connected in a slightly different ways, but you're all connected, economically, kind of biologically. So it's important for you to collaborate to make sure you manage this thing well.
You're right. We're all connected, but there are individual challenges.
There are definitely individual challenges. In the case of Grenada, unfortunately, they're facing some challenges when it comes to export and reporting to CITES. I have to say that this project is a collaboration between the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, or UNCTAD, which is the UN's major trade body, CITES, which is the convention related to the trade of wildlife. So anybody that deals with the trade of wildlife products, they are the ones who regulate that. Of course, the OECS, and it's all funded by United Nations. So yes, they all have different challenges. Grenada has a challenge of not being able to export. St. Vincent has a challenge of significantly increasing harvest. St. Lucia has challenges because their waters are completely different. They're much deeper, so harvesting the Queen Conch is much more dangerous in St. Lucia. It's dangerous everywhere, but it's much more dangerous there. And of course, because of their interactions with the French Caribbean, there are some incentives for under the radar trade, which is a big challenge as well for St. Lucia, even though they're managing it quite well.
How do we make a project like this sustainable?
So, I mean, that's a serious question and actually a very pertinent one. So, we've been working for about 18 months on this project. We've been talking to fishers, processors. We did in each of the 3 project countries case studies. We did a stakeholder mapping. And it's all building towards what we're doing today, yesterday and today, which is issuing a BioTrade plan of action, right? So basically what this does is it gives all of this scientific research consultation, participatory research, because it's really coming from the fishers and processors themselves. It gives it some political weight and some political will, behind this effort. So it's not just saying it's a technocrats deciding that we want to do all these management measures. The political directorate is also behind this. So once we get that support under the plan of action, we can actually take this and say, activity 1B, can you fund this as a cooperation expert? And I know St. Vincent and the Grenadines and your PM are, they're experts at cooperation, but now we're giving them almost like a menu of things that they can go and say, okay, we need to have more stock assessments for Queen Kong. Can you fund this as an international donor agency? So that's what we're trying to do today and tomorrow, get the political will behind these actions so that we can get resources to execute more things for the benefit of everybody in the fishery.
Indeed. So that's what you do today and tomorrow. When does all of this wrap up the conference?
So actually today is our last day. You will see our Director General, Director General of the OECS is here for this meeting. We have 3 CFOs, the Chief Fisheries Officers from all 3 countries. We had your Minister of Agriculture, the 2 PSs. So that was yesterday in our opening ceremony, and today we will have a launch of a communique, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks the publication of the plan of action, which will be the close of this phase of the project. But hopefully, if we're successful, we get good visibility here. We are able to get the resources to do phase 2, and we have some promising leads right now.
You spoke about phase 2. Is there, well, of course, you must have a timeline for implementation. What does that look like?
So for phase 2, we're hoping to do a 5-year action plan. Queen Kong takes about 3 to 4 years to mature, based on I'm not a scientist, but based on our understanding from the scientists. So the first 3 years of that plan, I think, are quite critical. We're in the very exploratory stages of considering Queen Kong aquaculture, which is something which is quite novel. So I don't want to say that it's going to happen, because we just don't know how this is going to play out. But it's our desire to, take those first 3 years to figure out how we can get some Queen Kong aquaculture off the ground and maybe raise a mature Kong, in an aquaculture facility to see.
In other words, we breed Kong on land.
Well,
not really on land, but
controlled. Yes, exactly. But the primary purpose of that is to restock the wild population, right? So a lot of people would think of it as ranching like cattle. It's not really like that. Ideally you have to return it to the wild, because the truth of the matter is no one has figured out how to breed a Kong from scratch in a facility, right? We still have to go and find the young ones, help almost increase their rate of survival. And because we're increasing the rate of survival, we can re-release the mature ones into the ocean. Because with Kong, it's very important to have a certain density for them to mate, right? Basically what happens is they come together like in a carnival and in a big pile, and then they mate. And if they don't have a certain density, the mating is just not successful, right? So this is the risk of the harvesting that we're doing right now. If it drops below a certain density, you will see Kong out there. It will seem like there's a resource, but they can't find each other to produce the next generation, which is a serious risk. So we're trying to mitigate that risk by creating something like a nursery for restocking the wild.
Okay, so I guess that answers the question of sustainability, or at least partially. And one of the things that you're trying to work on and ensure is that we meet certain global standards across the OECS exporters platform. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point. We're trying to meet global standards when it comes to, export requirements. We're also trying to meet global requirements when it comes to CITES, which is really about sustainability. So I have to stress here, and this is probably the biggest question that's going to come from fishers and processors. It's things like, basically there should be periods where the Queen Kong is protected because it's agglomerating to mate, right? And the best practice, global best practice with CITES is to have some sort of closed season. Now, we're not necessarily saying specifically that there should be one, but what we're saying right now is that there should be research to identify when are they coming together to figure out when we should consider something like this. And I want to emphasize, to anybody who is a processor or fisher, this is not just about the environment, it's also about the people, right? So if we say, just like lobster, 1 or 2 months you can't fish conch, we're saying in this plan there have to be alternatives for fishers to be able to participate almost in the enforcement of the closed season maybe, which is what happens in Belize, or in places like Puerto Rico, they actually participate in the science, right? So people who have to go out and figure out, well, how many conch are there? Well, who better than a conch diver? There are already people out there, they know where the conch are. So we're considering things like that, which may sound controversial, but we're considering it in a way that doesn't displace or negatively impact the fisher in the long run, ideally. So that's what we're trying to do.
Alexander, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I know you're going to enjoy the rest of the weekend with us here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and you leave on Wednesday, I believe it is.
Wednesday, yeah. I'm almost sad that it's such a short trip because there are many Grenadines that I've not visited, many Grenadine islands. I've been all around mainland, but there's so much more to see in St. Vincent that I'll be coming back again and again for.
You need a couple of years.
I need a
yeah, you're free to come back. We'll take care of you.
All right, good.
We have Vinci Mass in a couple of weeks.
I know. But once Candyman allow me back in, I'm happy to come again.
Yep, you're safe.
All right,
yeah. We'll be back.